blessings to the family. Peace and blessings to the family. Today is day three in this beautiful country, you know what I mean? Ghana and whatnot. It is about 4:30 a.m. I have a 5 a.m. pickup to do another fantastic excursion. As I can see from the title and the intro, you know what I mean? It's about that history part of this trip, you know what I mean? The crux, the heart of why I am here and always wanted to be here. So yeah, it's gonna be an all-day thing, 12 hours, be exhausted. I want to say this: I respect the folks here in Ghana wholeheartedly. Y'all have my respect, especially when it comes to the spices. Yesterday I had some chicken, grilled chicken, and jollof rice. And it's crazy because my tour guide yesterday and I and the other two brothers in the back, we were all talking about spicy foods and whatnot and how I can't take spice. Well, last night I ordered that food thinking it's all good. I'm eating it. Couldn't even finish it. The young lady had to bring me ketchup. I thought that helped a little bit. It didn't help at all. And I don't like wasting money on food, and I had to waste it. You know what I mean? It was too hot for me. So now I know either I'm gonna ask for no spices or just hit up KFC, unfortunately, you know what I mean? But it was all good. So yeah, again, today's excursion is a really deep, powerful trip today, and I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the weather, it has like a 70% chance of rain, but then as time goes on, it gets lower. So hopefully it isn't like it was yesterday, right? With the whole shit coming down. Because I definitely want to get some drone footage around the castle and whatnot, you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. I'll definitely holler at y'all. Peace.
So you are welcome to Assin Manso Ancestral Graveyard and the Last Bath River. My name is Kofiata, and I'm going to be your guide all the way from here till we get to the river and we come back here. You are welcome once again to Assin Manso. This community played a very critical role during the transatlantic slave trade era. There is a river and a market that will be visiting very soon. That is where our ancestors had their very last bath on the Ghanaian land. Long before the arrival of the Europeans, our ancestors were living in states and were living in kingdoms. They were always on the move looking for resources, good land, good water for their own use and that of their animals they were rearing. Greater portions of our continent here were very thick forests. So whenever they are on the move and they get to a location where there are already existing people, they always went for war. These were not wars to kill each other, but these were wars to get possession of the land and the resources in those areas. So when they go for war, the group that wins take possession of those they won over. They use them as slaves. These slaves were not in shackles. They were not chained. They were not owned as properties. They served for a period of time, and when that time is up, they are freed to go and continue with their lives. Those who have expertise like farmers and herbalists were using their skills to help themselves and the people who got access to them. The young men who were well built and very energetic were added to the army of the group that got access to them, so that when they had to expand to another place, they were using that group of people to fight there and expand their territory. This activity went on for a very long time until the arrival of the Europeans. The first group of Europeans who came to the motherland here, as in Ghana here, were the Portuguese. They came to a community called Elmina. The original name of that community was Assin Manso. But because of the level of gold they were seeing around, they named the place the mine. In Portuguese language, it's known as Almina, but it was corrupted into Elmina, and that has been the name of that community all the way up until now. They stayed there and traded with our ancestors. They were here to trade in items such as gold, ivory, lettuce, pepper, and other spices. The system of trade at the time was known as barter trade, so they were exchanging goods for goods. They stayed in castles that were built over there, and they were traded with our ancestors. The Portuguese got to Elmina in the year 1471. By 1482, they were done building the Elmina castle. They stayed there and traded with our ancestors. They got possession of these goods that they were getting from our ancestors, such as the gold, the ivory, the lettuce, the spices, and they were bringing certain European goods to the motherland here. European goods such as gunpowder, sugar, mirror, beads. These were the items they were bringing, and then they were exchanging it with the local goods they were getting from our ancestors on the motherland here. By the 15th century, they got access to the New World. The locals they got there, who were known as the Red Indians, were captured and used as slaves on plantations over there. Because of a disease called smallpox, several of these Red Indians were dying, and they needed extra manpower to supplement the activities that the Red Indians were doing. Upon their arrival back to the motherland here, they tricked our ancestors in going to a kind of trade with them. So they told our ancestors that these individuals you got out of war, they are technically your enemies. You have them among you, you give them so much relative peace, and they are going about doing the activity. Don't you think you are exposing yourself to harm? Because there will be a day these individuals will know all your secrets and they will fight against you. So why not give them to us? We take them to the New World. They help us on our plantations, and in return, we will exchange and give you certain goods. The same European goods they were trading with our ancestors, that was what they promised our ancestors of giving back to them if they are able to give them those they got out of war. They bought into the idea and they started that exchange with our ancestors. So our ancestors will give them the captives of war, and in return take those European goods. Because of the individuals who were picked from here and were taken to the New World, because of how strong they were able to do so much work there. So the Europeans or the Portuguese were making a lot of gains. Because of the level of gains they were making, several European countries also decided to come to the motherland here to get their share of this trade. So the Dutch, the Danes, the Swedes, the Germans, the French, the British, all of them came to the motherland here. They came to get access to the same resources the Portuguese were getting from the motherland. Among they themselves, they were always fighting for dominance over the resources that the Portuguese came to get access to in the motherland here. They built several forts and castles along our coast. Those forts were originally built as places they were to stay and use as their warehouses. But you know one interesting thing? They built dungeons also there. So the question I keep asking is, what were dungeons doing in a facility that was supposed to be a warehouse? So right there, I believe they were having the intention of even enslaving people, because long before their arrival here, there were some that were already kidnapping people from places such as Senegal, Gambia area, and were taking them to the New World. I'm sure they wanted to expand that in the motherland here. That is why right from the beginning, they built dungeons in those castles. They stayed in the castle, used the parts of the structures as warehouses, and used the dungeons as prisons where they were keeping the slaves they got from our ancestors. But because of the volume of demand that they were making, they couldn't meet it from the supply they were getting from those who were going to war and winning and giving their slaves to them. So they influenced some of the locals, weaponized them to go into the interior and kidnap people for them. Criminally minded ones took the opportunity, went to places such as Chad, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso to kidnap people. Those people were placed in chains and in shackles, walked all over the way from wherever they were kidnapped from until they finally get us Assin Manso here. There is a slave market we'll be getting to, and there is a slave river we'll be walking to shortly. 3 different activities happen at that river. When we get there, we'll be able to talk more about those activities. After they are sold from that place, merchants came all the way from the castles to come and buy these individuals and move all the way to the castles with them. They still walk barefooted, still in chains and in shackles. The journey from all the way Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Chad to this community sometimes took as much as 7 months for them walking barefooted. They were fed only once a day. So imagine walking for about 7 months, being fed only once every day, walking several kilometers. Many of our ancestors died on this journey. Some died out of starvation because during the journey they walked for a very long period but were fed only once. Some died because when they were crossing rivers, they got drowned in those rivers. Whenever people die of that nature, they took them off the chain and dumped them back into the river. Greater portions of our parts here were very thick forest at the time. So whilst they are on the journey, when they get to some of those places, there are wild animals that try to feed on those individuals. So those among the group that they think are giving them problems and are not cooperating with them, this is what they were doing. They would take that individual from the chain. They would chain him to a tree. They lash his bare back. When there are cuts and blood that is coming, they leave that person attached to the tree. The wild animals are able to sense the smell of the blood, come closer to that individual to feed on him or her. By so doing, they were taking the attention of the animal from the rest of the group that they were working with, so that the animals will concentrate on that person to feed on him or her. It gives them a safe passage to walk through that section of the forest all the way till they finally go to Assin Manso. When they were sold here and taken to the castles, they were kept in the dungeons. Those dungeons were to be warehouses that were to hold goods. But when these slaves were taken, they were placed in those same facilities. There were no washrooms, no lighting, no ventilation in those dungeons. So you can imagine the condition in there. The same room they were sleeping in, that was the same place they were defecating. The same place they were sitting to eat, and that was the same place they were sleeping. With no lighting, with no ventilation. You can imagine what our ancestors went through. When the ship is about to leave, they take them through a dedicated gate known as the Gate of No Return, or the Door of No Return. That door was named Door of No Return on purpose, with the understanding that when this individual crossed through that door, there was no way they were expecting them to come back to the motherland. They passed through that gate, packed them in ships that were waiting along the coast, and they were taken to the New World. Several of our ancestors were stolen from us here, taken to the New World. I always say they were stolen because these were individuals who were taken to a place where they didn't subscribe that they were going to. The circumstances through they even left, walking barefooted several kilometers with heavy chains and shackles on their legs. I don't think any of them was happy going on this journey. So even on the high seas, some trying jumping into the river because to them they believe if they die by killing themselves, it was right and proper than being taken to a place they have no idea of the conditions that will be there. Even if they don't know what will be happening there, what has happened all the way from where they were brought from, when they were walking barefooted, in chains and in shackles, and when being fed only once, that gives them an idea how that place will be. They were taken to the New World to work on plantations. So the sugarcane plantation, the tobacco plantation, and the cotton plantation. This trade went on close to almost 400 years before it finally ended. Ended on paper in certain portions, step by step, until finally interest in that trade died off, and then they moved to other things that they think will give them the resources that they were looking for. The very last group of Europeans who were with us all the way till we got our independence were the British. Assin Manso slave market. At the peak of the slave trade, this market here was the busiest slave market in the whole of West Africa at the time. So Salaga slave market up north was the largest slave market in terms of land size, but Manso here was the busiest in terms of the number that came here. This market was serving three main castles: the Cape Coast Castle, the Elmina Castle, and Fort Amsterdam. Fort Amsterdam is on your way from Accra getting close to Cape Coast. There is a nice fort at the top of a hill called Ambanzi. So that fort is located in Ambanzi. The merchants who came here came all the way to this place to meet the raiders who went all the way to the north, Burkina, Mali, Niger, Chad, to kidnap people and brought them to the park here. Upon arrival here, there were no structures around, so they were chained to the bamboos. They waited here for sometimes months or weeks until the merchants came from the castles to buy them from here. When they get here, they fed them in a bit better way than they were being fed along the journey. That act was done on purpose, because by the time they walk several months to get to this place, some of them become very weak. So when they feed them in that way, they are able to regain their lost energy. As I told you, there are three different activities happening in the park here: the last bath, the first auction, the first branding. Please, let's go closer to the water and then we talk about the bath activity from there. The level has gone up again. So last night it rained till this morning. It rained yesterday when we were here. When we got to the house in the night, it still rained. So that's why the water level has come up this way. So we have two rivers here. The one flowing is known as Nana Emisa. The local name is Ochi, or the locals call it Ochi, the one flowing. There is another river here, very calm. If you look at it, you see that we have two colors from here. The very brownish one at the end there is the one coming from this one because of the overflow. That is why it is like that. This one is the Slave River. It's a very thin river that passes through here. It's very calm. It doesn't flow very fast like the other one. It's in this river that our ancestors had their very last bath. It is called Donkonsio. So Donko as in slave and Insio as in water. It's in this river that our ancestors were placed to have their very last bath on the motherland. Still in chains and in shackles, they are placed in this water. They use the bark and the leaves of the bamboo to wash themselves in place of the sponge that we will be using, or we are using now in our various homes. When they are done bathing, they bring them to the open space here for their body to get dry. They apply shea butter on their body for them to look fresh and shiny. There is an insect on your hand. On your hand.
Oh, thank you.
For them to look fresh and shiny. After that activity, they have a tool called a speculum oris that they use in first opening their mouth to count the number of teeth they have. That gives them an idea how old these individuals are. They used broken mirror to take off their hair and the beard of the young men for them to look young, because that was the requirement the merchants were looking for. They were looking for young and energetic young men to be taken to the new world. All these activities I just described to you here were done as preparatory activities to prepare these individuals down, so that when they finally take them to the market proper, they'll be able to sell them and get the prices that they'll be getting from them. This is just a pictorial of how that activity was done. Even whilst in the rivers, they still had the chains on them. So the men go together as a group to bath. When they are done, the women go together as a group to have their bath. Let's go to that section and we talk about the activities that happened from there. They were chained this way, with covers at the front and the back of their body, and then ladies had some to cover their upper sections. The merchants came to this place to pick those who they were interested in from here. They were looking for those who were well built and those who were energetic, because the journey ahead demands hard work and people who were tough to withstand the conditions on the way. All the way from the castles till they were taken to the new world to work on plantations. They are arranged this way and they pick the strong ones. The weak ones, on a good day to the merchants or the raiders, the day they are able to sell more of their captives, they left the very weak ones in the park here. So after they are gone, there was already a community called Assin Manso here. Members from that community come to pick those who have signs of surviving again. They take them to the community and look after them. Those who survive become members of whichever family came to pick them from here. But on a bad day, a day that the merchants are not able, the raiders are not able to sell more of their captives, out of anger for these individuals wasting their time all the way from wherever they were picked from till they got here, because of anger, they shot each and every one of them here. Those who died here were dumped into the river where we just came from, or were dumped into the bamboo plantation over here. So as you can imagine, several of our ancestors were dumped into that river and also dumped into the forest over here. When we met after welcoming you, the next thing I told you was my name. Our ancestors who were taken through this journey were deprived of their name. That act was never by accident. It was done on purpose. With the understanding that when these individuals are taken to the new world, it will be difficult for they themselves or their descendants to come back and be able to know where exactly they came from. Even through the gate of no return. The name is gate or door of no return, with the understanding that these individuals who will be taken will never even be able to come back to the motherland. So whenever I get our brothers and sisters from the diaspora coming back to the park here, I tell them the Europeans meant it for evil, God Almighty meant it for good. That is why they took our ancestors to all those atrocities, but you and I are here today to have a feel of our history and to have a touch of the water through which our ancestors were taken. They made our ancestors leave behind their names, and they used metals, placed them in fire. When it is red hot, they used those metals to make marks on our ancestors. Those marks became means of identifying them according to the merchants who bought them or got access to them from here. These people who were bought from here were seen now as properties of the owner or the merchants who bought them from here. So all the way into the new world, the activities they were to do there, the gains they were making there, all belongs to whichever merchant came to the park here to buy them. The act of imprinting that metal, hot metal wounds or marks on them is known as the branding. So whereas the individuals were exchanged from the hands of the raiders into the hands of the merchants is known as the branding, the auction, which is the first auction being done from here, the act of putting a mark on them is known as the branding. That is what they are doing to the young man on the board over there. So those marks are identified by the various merchants who came here, and from here all the way till they get to the castles, they identify them by the marks they have on them. It's saying all the way till they were taken to the castle. When the site here was built in 1998, we tried giving our brothers and sisters who come back a different connection to the motherland. So instead of passing through the last bath where our ancestors had their very last bath on the motherland, we will be passing through this place. The mark written there is first bath of return. This is our first time of coming back to the motherland to get access to the water. So we are not going to use the last bath where our ancestors had their very last bath, but we are going to pass through this place to get access to the water. This place is a place of paying homage. This is a place of paying respect to our ancestors. We'll be walking close to the water to have a fill of it. If you want to do a prayer here, it is allowed. You want to do your meditations here, it is allowed. If you want to say thank you to our ancestors for their resilience all through that time, all of that act is allowed from here. From here going back to the main park, I would suggest a few places where you can get your very nice shots, and then when we finally get to the park, we end the experience from there. I said experience because this is not a tour to me. I see it as experience because it gives us the opportunity to go into the past and observe some of the things our ancestors went through all the way till they were taken to the new world. We're making a short walk to the river. Because the level is up here, we can't be able to go too deep, but at the entrance we can just put our feet in, we can have a feel of the water, and it gives us that connection with our ancestors, several of them who passed through this particular place.
It's already recording.
Okay.
Thank you. Shout out to the ancestors. Today's Happy Father's Day. You know what I mean?
Oh, you can stop it. Hold on, you can stop.
Oh, just touch it. Just touch
Okay.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, can have a feel. How does it feel? Very cool. It's a very good place for us to do meditation, for us to do our prayers. Several of our ancestors died and were dumped into the river, as I said earlier. So whenever we are here, we are able to get that one-on-one connection with our ancestors. This is normal water that we use for all activities that we use water for. We are free to have a fill of it. We touch any part of our body with this water. This is a water that our ancestors had several centuries ago and had their contact with it. It's a very perfect place for us to do our prayers from. From here, we give one gift. If you have a coin on you say your wish on the coin, just one wish on the coin. You throw the coin into the river. This river flows all the way from here through a community known as Ejumako, through a community known as Mankesim, all the way into the Atlantic Ocean. We believe our ancestors passed through this place. Whenever we come, we have this kind of connections with them. Whatever we demand from them, they are able to grant it for us with the help of God Almighty and our ancestors. If you want to do a prayer here, you are allowed to do.
Charles, do you have a coin? You have a coin?
I don't have a coin. Thank you, brother.
That's good. We have something written up there. We are back home. So this is home. This is where our ancestors were taken from and they were stolen to the new world. This is a pure reminder for us that finally we are back to our ancestors. We are back to our home. We are stepping in the same water that our ancestors stood in. It's a good connection with us and then our ancestors. Whenever we come this way, our ancestors are happy because several of them were taken away from the motherland here. They wish they are back here. If they are not able to do it by themselves and you and I are here today, we are representing them on the motherland here at this moment. They are very happy that we are finally here. That is why we give the gift that we just did from this place. It's an issue of belief. I have been doing it always and it works for me. And I know it works for whoever comes here with that same belief to do what we've just done here. It is a perfect connection with our ancestors and it's a reminder for us that this is home. Coming back home shouldn't be a one-day thing. It should be a thing we do as many times as we get the opportunity to do. All the way from here, if you want to take a picture up there, you can just be down and then get a nice shot from here. After that, when we get out, the first part of return is also another nice spot. And then the last bath is a nice spot. All the way till we get to the park, I would suggest a few places for you. The ones that you'll be okay in taking, thank you very much. The ones you'll be interested in taking, then you can be able to take them all the way till we get to the park and then finally end the experience from there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Two-room played a critical role in our culture as people of Assin, or as Ghanaians in particular. So this room here was created as a replica of the original one in the chief palace. When a chief is chosen, he is placed in a room where the customs and tradition of the place is taught to him. We have this here as a connection between the community and then the trade and the site here. So long before the site was built, the slave river was here, the slave market was here. So each year the chief and people come here to pour libation. Until 1998, when those mortar remains were brought to the main park and then they were buried there and infrastructure was developed from this section. Chieftaincy is one of the very important sectors of our lifestyle as a people from this side of the continent. So this room here is a reminder of that kind of activity. We do what is known as the matrilineal form of inheritance. So we inherit from the mother side. Whereas places like the north of Ghana, the Volta region, the Greater Accra region, they do patrilineal, where they inherit from the father side. We in Akan sections, we inherit from the mother side. So when a chief passes on, they look through the matrilineal side and choose the next person who will inherit that person. They look through the young men, those who are hardworking, honest, truthful, credible, and have leadership qualities. They have a group that searches through them, decide on who to take for that particular role. When they settle on the final individual, they put him into a room. They teach him the customs and traditions of the place. There is a very important ritual which is performed. This individual is placed in a very dark room, deep in the night, blindfolded. There are several stools in that room, wooden stools, with names on them. So the stool he picks, the name on that stool becomes the title he will be using throughout his reign. So from that day, his own name on his birth cert, driver's license, insurance, and any government document ceases to be called for him in public. So the name he got from the stool that he picked became the title he'll be using. So let's come closer to these sections. All these names we have here are the stool names some individuals took when they were made chiefs of this paramountcy. Assin Manso is not just a small community on its own, it's a paramountcy with several communities with their chiefs that pay allegiance to the paramount chief in the community here. So we have different communities have chiefs and there are people who pay allegiance to the paramount chief here. These names are the stool names they pick. So these are not their original names on their birth cert or driver's license or any government document, but this is the names they picked from the stool they chose from the stool room. Those here are referred to as those with the blackened stool. What does it mean? They were chosen, they coronated, ruled, died, and were buried as chiefs. So they went through the whole cycle as chiefs. Those at the other end are known as those without the blackened stool. What does it also mean? They were chosen, coronated, they ruled, but along the way they were either suspended or destooled. Sometimes offenses that will warrant them to be destooled are not so grave offenses, but sometimes basic things. Because they were placed in the room and taught their customs and tradition, we expect them to know better. So the little things that will bring disrespect to the stool and to the community itself, that will warrant them to be destooled, to serve as a deterrent to those who will be coming after, and to serve as a deterrent to the members of the community as well. As far back as 1050, there was already a community here called Assin Manso. As far back as 1050. So remember I told you the Portuguese came to Elmina in the year 1471. Long before then, there was already a community called Assin Manso here.
Right.
This chief's time, it was during his time that the site was built. So he went to the fabric that we use when we are in our various houses, but we use it for special occasions. Weddings, festivals, when we are inviting or getting a dignity coming into our midst, we use it for special occasions. They are very traditional fabric to us as a people. We have it here as a connection between we, the chiefs, the people, and our brothers who are coming back from the diaspora. I know there are several places you'll be going around and you see people with this fabric.
Yeah.
This is unique to us as Ghanaians. We have kente from Ashanti, we have kente from North, we have kente from the Volta region. It is the patterns that tell the origin of the kente, but they all play the same role. We use them as important fabric that we use for special occasions.
Okay.
So this place is here as a connection of that activity. As I told you earlier, the original storeroom is in the palace. The palace is in town, but this is just a replica here, so that whenever we are here, we get a bit of the story from this section. It's from here. As I said from the beginning, what we've just done, I don't call it a tour. I prefer to call it an experience, because it gives us the chance to go into the past, to observe some of the things our ancestors went through. They walked barefooted, and you and I are walking barefooted, just like that, to get ourselves grounded to Mother Earth and to have the experience same as they had at the time. All the way from the ancestral graveyard till we got to the river and finally back here. I want to say thank you once again for coming. It's ordained by our ancestors and God Almighty that a day like this will come and you'll be here. Several people have made this plan to get to the motherland here, but once they started, one thing comes, another thing comes, and they are not able to do it. But if you are able to do it, it is because it is planned that today is the day you need to come around. That is why you've chosen to come at this time. As you are going back, it's my prayer that our ancestors will protect you and guide you. They take you to your various destinations to be go until you finally get to your very last spot. This shouldn't be a one-off thing, as I said earlier. It is something that we do as and when our ancestors and God Almighty bless us with resources. Now that we are going, whatever you spend in coming, it is my prayer that our ancestors and God Almighty will replenish every single dollar you spent on this journey. Thank you once again for coming, and I'll be happy if you become the ambassador of Assin Manso and ambassador of Ghana, because the more the message go out there, the more people know that there's never needs to be a time again in our history when people will go around buying or taking their fellow human beings as slaves, putting them in chains and in shackles, and crossing rivers or seas with them all the way to the New World to go and work on plantation. There should never be a day like that in our history as human beings. Thank you once again. Thank you once again for
Thank you, brother.
coming to the motherland.
Thank you.